Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
And now we welcome you into the portion of Liberty Nation Radio which we entitle COVID-19. Oh, no, excuse me. I mean, Talkin Liberty. There are other things going on in the world unbeknownst to almost everybody in the United States that's overcome with hysteria or at least concern. And joining us is our guardian of individual liberty, Scott Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim.
So, Scott, what can you tell us as our guardian of individual liberty that can make people feel a little bit better about the hysteria or, at a minimum, deep concern that seems to be enveloping the American people?
Well, Tim, I don't know that I can make people feel better, but I think that I can give them a call to action, which may make them feel good that they can be proactive and do something, and that is to be on guard against the threats to liberty that are coming and will continue to come as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. There's a great book called Crisis and Leviathan by Robert Higgs, which details how the federal government has gotten so big and accrued so much power. And let's recall, Tim, that anytime the federal government gets power, they don't manufacture it out of thin air. They take it from the people. It's our power. And when the federal government exercises it or commands it, we lose it. And anytime we have a big crisis like this, people will try to use it to take away our power and our rights. And I think that whether it's at the local level or at the national level, now is the time to especially be on guard. You called me the guardian of liberty in your introduction. I love it. And everybody in this time of crisis needs to be their own guardian of liberty.
I think the other distinguishing characteristic, Scott, about when the government steps in a crisis to seize control is that they never give that power back. They take it and make it a permanent bureaucracy, a permanent formation of more concentration of government power. So it's a one-way street when it comes to government intervention. As Ronald Reagan famously said, the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government agency.
That's right. And so now is the time. Now is the time to be on guard against it.
All right, let's move on to what you call price gouging.
Well, Tim, that's right. I think that this is perhaps the most easily explainable and sort of relatable crisis measure that is put forth in a way to kind of like defend the people and buoy them, but in actuality punishes everyone and is an intolerable imposition against liberty. And let's just take the surgical mask issue if we can. I think it's just so easily relatable. Mm-hmm. Amazon, they've banned the sales of surgical masks that are priced wildly above what they were priced at before the crisis started. And I think that, if you think about, let's say you had a manufacturing capacity to make surgical masks. Perhaps you made some other garment or item that was not related to that, but used some of the same components of it. Well, would you want to turn your factory into a surgical mask production facility? Well, if you could only sell the surgical masks for what you were making or what it cost you to make them or a little bit above, maybe you would and maybe you wouldn't. But if you could sell them for a lot more than that, you would be encouraged to do so. And that's why price gouging actually benefits everyone, because what the world needs right now is more surgical masks. Well, you could have a government bureaucrat try to order that done, or let the price signaling take control. And the price says, we need more surgical masks. Please go make them. Also, it empowers and allows people to go ahead and provide for themselves. If you need a surgical mask, are you better off being able to get one at whatever price the market commands? Or go to some government bureau or the Amazon bureaucracy and say, please sell me a surgical mask. They have no masks to sell there. So the person who does have the mask should be able to command the price, and we all benefit from it. And whether that's a gallon of gasoline on a barrier island trying to get out of a hurricane or a surgical mask in the midst of a viral outbreak, these price signals actually help the marketplace and they benefit liberty. And it's a bit of a complex thing to wrap your head around. It's not one-step thinking, and that's why these laws are popular, Tim. But we need to do the two-step thinking and secure our liberty.
Now, what about Remain in Mexico? Staying for now, a Supreme Court case that Donald Trump finds very important to his, what many people call radical immigration policies.
So we recall the massive caravans that were drifting northward from Central America years ago with
Indeed.
thousands of people. And basically what they would do is overwhelm the border, and they would apply for asylum. And while they were undergoing the application process and review, they were set loose in the United States. And as you might imagine, some significant number of those people never then showed up for their asylum hearings or anything, and are just now in the United States as illegal immigrants. Well, in order to put a stop to that, Tim, what the Trump administration did was they said they instituted a policy whereby those applicants had to stay in the country they were in before coming to the United States. They had to stay in Mexico, and they could issue their application at the border, but then they had to remain in Mexico. That's why the policy is called Remain in Mexico. All right, well, a bunch of activists sued and said that this violated the rights of those asylum applicants because they were subject to conditions in Mexico that were violent, not safe, use your preferred adjective to describe an intolerable.
Not meeting American standards.
That certainly, to be sure.
Right.
And a lower court judge, a district court judge, Tim, the judge that President Trump named, quote, Obama judge, right? We had that kerfuffle between him and the Chief Justice.
Well, let me just intervene and parrot the words, quote the words of the Chief Justice. There are no Obama judges,
right.
Scott. There's no Trump judges. There's only judges concerned with the greater good of the American people.
Well, Judge Tigar is the man's name, and he seems to be an Obama judge, Tim, because he instituted this international injunction against the United States government from going forward with this policy. It was then taken up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Ninth Circuit said, we uphold the ruling, but we're going to trim it back a little bit and only make it relevant within the Ninth Circuit, mindful of recent Supreme Court decisions where justices have said these nationwide injunctions are getting out of hand. The problem is that for the administration is that the Ninth Circuit covers both California and Arizona, where there's significant border activity, as you might imagine. Well, the Trump administration went to the Supreme Court and said, please halt the implementation of this. So the Supreme Court did grant the request. They said, absolutely, the administration does not have to cease and desist its activities and can continue until the case is heard.
All right, well, let's come back across the Mexican border to our state of Virginia, where, of course, the ongoing battle over guns and leftist politicians who want to take as many of them away as possible continues. Give us an update.
Well, they have won some of the battles, Tim. I don't think they've won the war, but there are a number of troublesome anti-Second Amendment laws that have passed in Virginia that are waiting for the governor's signature. Among them, implementation of local controls for some gun control measures. And the reason why that's so odious to liberty is because it impinges upon the right to free travel. We can't have so many individual rules that may want a felon in one place and a law-abiding citizen in another. And guns are the only issue where that can be true in the commonweal. So.
Oh, the Commonweal. Very, very nice. Not the Commonwealth. You're using the traditional Old English version of what most people know as a state, but is actually a Commonwealth, actually a Commonweal. Very impressive, Scott.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, finally, Scott, Talkin Liberty would not be complete in any given week without at least one story from the Golden State of California, where the DMV's rejection of allegedly offensive personalized license plate is being challenged in court.
Tim, the affronts to free speech don't always come in the form of massive broadsides against our right to, clearly political speech. Sometimes it's in small areas that are also important because of the principles involved. And that's what this case presents, and that's why I bring it to the table today. California reserves the right to reject personalized license plates for messages they consider offensive. Now, the problem is that the individual examiner at the DMV's version of what's offensive has not been established in any law. It's totally random, and it's at a whim. So if you want to have a certain plate and you get a certain examiner on a certain day, it may pass or not. And that's not acceptable in a free society. And people do use these plates to deliver some message. There are ones, the current case brought by the Pacific Legal Foundation, I think, includes 4 or 5 different plaintiffs. And one of them wants to have the name of a band modified, which is not, by the way, a slur or anything like that, on their plate. Another one wants to have the word queer. And that person is, self-identifies as a gay, queer person. And to them, it's a celebration of their identity, not a denigration, for instance. So I think that the state has to be consistent with all of its speech regulations. And if they want to have a list of banned words, that may be appropriate. But to just leave it up to any given examiner on any given day is an imposition against free speech.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Tim.
This program, Liberty Nation Radio and LibertyNation.com's own podcasts, The Uprising, hosted by Scott and the Rabbit Hole. Politics and Prose, hosted by Mark Angelides, all available on demand at LibertyNation.com and from fine podcast providers everywhere. So that is it for this week, but we will be back at you next week, same time, same station. Till then, this is Tim Donner saying, stand up for liberty, and we'll see you next time on Liberty Nation Radio.